Okay, so this video is going to be on my laptop, and unfortunately you're probably going to hear in the background occasionally the little engine sound whirring up. It's my fan going nuts because I don't think it's really happy about running Mudbox. But anyways, I'm going to talk a little bit about my process and my process within Mudbox, which leads to pretty much zero need for retopology. I'll talk about a couple of things that I do in here that also help me out. And so this retopology thing, a lot of people will go in and they'll take a sphere or something like that and go ahead and retopologize that after they sculpted a few hours away. And that works if you really don't have a strong idea of what it is you want to create to begin with. But if you do know what you want to create and you have a very clear design in mind, it's much better to have a good base topology. And the reason for this is because you can have a silhouette that maintains itself all the way through without having to retopologize. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll go ahead and page down, and then page down again, and you see just down to like just over 4,000, 4,600. And yet we look at this and it still looks much the same as the other one. In fact, if I bring it all the way up, the highest level currently, which has these details, it's actually not in the millions that most people would expect to see this current level of detail. And there's no pores in there yet, but that could be put on in a higher level. So if I bring this down to the very bottom level here, this is my base mesh. A little bit of that form is lost, but most of it's still there. I press W, you can see my base mesh. So the base mesh makes sure that it has things like the lines in place for where I need them. For the creasing, I have the hills and valleys for those lines there. I have filter lines around the lips to allow me to define that area as well. Make sure that I've defined a jawline with an edge loop and its forms. Defining the form of this tendon down here, straight through, so on and so forth. So making sure that I have a good base topology to start with means that I can make any general form that I want. And rather than subdividing multiple times and going ahead and just starting to sculpt, which is what a lot of people would normally do, I actually start at this level using things like the grab tool and actually physically pulling points. Just pulled the mic a little bit closer to me, so if I suddenly got a little bit louder, that's why. Just wanted to get it away from the fan. So I physically pull points and groups of points if need be, in larger section. You can quickly get your base form into something else. In this particular case, I turned it into a Vulcan. So when you get all this down into the rough silhouette that basically resembles what you want, then you can go ahead and subdivide and go ahead and refine those details. And when you get as far as you need to, or as far as you can get within that region, then you then page up again or subdivide again, and you add more details. And that's basically my process. I always start at the lowest level, get as far as I can, physically possibly can, with that level of detail. And then once I've reached that level, then I move on to the next level of detail. And only then. So it's important because it means that my loops in here all follow where the actual creases go, which means that I don't need to actually retopologize this. Everything's in place. You can see these lines are all flowing to where I need them to go in order to support those forms. So that's the first important principle, least important to me. The next is I'm going to actually go in and get rid of this faking that I've done here. I just kind of fake the overlap. Dun, 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 dun. And I'm going to go ahead and page down, W, and make it for real. So I'll start grabbing this stuff refining the shape. Right now I'm pulling this bottom lid, so I'm actually not going to bother trying to freeze anything just yet. And there's going to be a little bit of a rendering glitch going on here because of Camtasia. That's smaller. And I'm just pulling this set of points backwards to form the basis of an eyelid. Up in there. And then once I've got them in and I feel fairly happy with where they are, so my lid, I can go ahead and I'm actually going to page up once here just because it's going to make it easier for what I'm about to do. I just flood this whole layer with white. It's important that I flood the whole thing with white because what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this into a stored sort of freezing mask. So what happens is white is left alone and black becomes the freezing. And if you have any areas that don't have any pixels covered, i.e. it's not filled with any value, it's transparent, those also are converted into freezing as well, which is why it's important to go ahead, take your paint tool and flood from the various different angles to fill this all the way up with white to start with. Then you can go ahead and start painting where you want things to freeze. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and freeze this area. I'm just going to paint in here. Actually, I'll pause the video and I'll just finish off the painting. Okay, so that's filled in. And just remember that sometimes it may kind of glitch out and you may paint through the model. So I'm just going to increase my brush size here, just using my square brackets. I'm going to hold down Control, and it's going to fill it in with the inverse color, which is white in this particular case. And that's all filled in, and I'm going to use this as a mask now. So freezing, if you've been using this program, basically prevents certain areas from moving. So in this particular case, I want to be able to pull this little flap of skin over top to give the simulation that the eyelid is rolling up and underneath. So I'm going to right click, freeze from selected, just turn that off. And actually you can do it even with it off. You can still freeze from selected. The option is still available and it works. So you don't have to have that mask turned on. And I'm going to go ahead, use the grab tool, and actually I'm on the wrong level. So I'm going to show you why I freeze this. So if I page down, it disappears. Page back up, it's there. Page up again, it's gone. It's locked specifically to this layer. This is because of point order. So because of the point order, we have this guy's number 1, and this guy's number 2, and this guy's number 3. And if I change the subdivision level, this guy could be number 552. The point order changes. So we don't have the ability to store that same information. So if we store it as a mask, what we can do is we can up and down the levels and still maintain a freeze. So I'm going to go down a level. It's not ready. I'm going to go ahead and freeze from selected, and I get that back. Now I can go ahead and just start pulling those points. There we go. A little bit difficult to tell exactly what I'm doing here, so just kind of doing my best. And I can go ahead and page up, and that one's already frozen, so should be fairly easy to go ahead and adjust. And one of the good things of going ahead and pulling on these guys at the lower levels first is that you'll get something that's less lumpy. If you start on the highest level, I find that I get stuff that's fairly lumpy right off the start. So this will prevent that from occurring because there's less points to pull, and when you page up, it automatically smooths out. So if I press W here, there I have that going on, and it's ready to go. So hopefully that gives you a general idea. You can go ahead and continue to sculpt that out and make those changes. So freezing with a paint layer and also keeping track of your edge loops as you go. Now one other thing to mention is, of course, when dealing with situations that make it difficult for you to be able to paint freezing if they already start closed off, like for instance in the mouth, I could start from the UVs. I could go into Photoshop or something like that and paint the mask in there instead. Or I could go ahead and try and get a little bit creative. Perhaps, let's go down through the levels here. And what I'll do is I'll create myself a temporary sculpt layer. And the sculpt layer is going to allow me to go ahead and oops, meant to be in grab mode. Grab some stuff. There we are. And now I can paint directly onto there. So I could go into my mask here and start painting directly. So I could say, okay, well, I want to paint that portion of the lip in there, get that all dark in here, deal with this stuff on the top. And I do different masks for different areas, so one for the upper lip, one for the bottom lip. I'll just page this up just to make it easy to paint. That's going to do the whole lip. This could be a problem with my UVs, or just another glitch. Yeah, it's probably a UV issue. Some bleeding going on there. Anyway, I'm going to take this and I'll go ahead and go back to my sculpt layer here, page down. I no longer need this, so I can just throw it away, and my painting will remain. So my painting is still there. If I page up, I can clean up that painting a little bit. And then freeze from selected. And now I have that to be able to mask off that area and control so that I can grab more efficiently with a larger brush and get a smoother area selection and leave those lips alone. So it just gives possibilities to be able to control an area faster. So don't think, oh geez, I can't paint in there, I don't know what to do. Just go ahead and make use of these temporary layers to go ahead and deal with that situation. Get into the areas that you can't get into. As long as you get paint in there, you just throw away the layer and you're good to go. There we go. That's it.